Before Madam Web came out, it was poorly received, and I couldn't imagine why. Gamers, comic book fans, they're known to be very open-minded to new things. I never saw the movie in theaters because after 10 years of new Marvel movies every year, I'm a little oversaturated with superhero movies, and that's coming from someone who collects comic books. But recently, I read that after coming to streaming services, Madam Web has had a resurgence of popularity because the internet loves irony. Regardless, I decided to give it a watch. As I said, I'm a huge comic book fan, and Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse just so happens to be one of my favorites. But I will be judging this along the basis of, is it a good movie? I'm not a comic book channel. I don't care about lore accuracy. I'm judging this on the basis of, if a regular person sat down and watched this, would they enjoy it? With that out of the way,
it's Morbin time.
No. Wrong movie. Oh, the movie starts off with a researcher looking for a rare spider that they claim is impossible to find that can supercharge its cells. The bodyguard accompanying the woman talks about Las Arañas, a mythical people with superpowers that punish bad people. And my first issue with the movie is how the woman is written already. I'm all for dynamic, well-written women in movies. I'm also tired of a damsel in distress just like everybody else. But I feel like the 180 Hollywood does isn't better, where they either write women as they would men and call it a day, or write women very one note. The researcher is pregnant and pretty far along, as they point out, but won't take a break, proceeds to mock the bodyguard that she is a woman of science, not fairy tales, and then takes his umbrella. All of that on the surface is nothing inherently wrong with it, but it tells us a lot about her character, that she is hardworking, independent, rational, kind of uptight. Which, this is a movie, there has to be a starting point for growth to happen, so of course. But what I mean by my earlier point is that it feels like movies only have a handful of modes when it comes to writing women. Workaholic, strong independent woman who doesn't need a man, damsel, angry, sexy. And that's boring as hell to watch personally, because they never explore them and their characters deeper beyond those traits, and even why they are the way they are. Anyway, in stereotypical bodyguard protecting the scientist in the jungle fashion, he is the bad guy who was searching for the spider. Lady doesn't give it up and he shoots her, and then a spider person appears and helps her give birth in a cave in a lake, but not before she is bitten by a spider, which I'm curious of, one, how will they explain how that means the daughter has powers? Because the mother got bit as she was being born when she got bit, I guess. I don't know. Why didn't they go after the guy who shot her? They show like a team of spider people. One of them could have gone after the guy. Are y'all cops? Y'all needed a whole squad to bring one pregnant woman to a cave for her to die in? Also, their costumes are kind of mid, not gonna lie. So the little girl in a cave in the rainforest in another country somehow gets to New York, where she's raised in foster care and grows up to become an EMT. And her character is a little insufferable, to say the least. Or they wrote her that way, as she is very avoidant of family-related things. So much so, the son of the person she just rescued drew her something, and she had to be pressured to take art from a child who is grateful you saved his mother. Come on. I understand you grew up in foster care and wanted a home, but you have to be forced to take a child's thank you card? That's so weird. Anyway, during the scene up until that point, they introduce other characters who will be in the movie in a very heavy-handed way by giving them extended screen time, like, oh, remember this face. Anyway, my point is the main character is only like 30. Everyone else has to be pretty young, I guess. Which I don't get why, but it was off-putting seeing the costume they have Sydney Sweeney in. Her character is the stepdaughter of the woman that was just saved. Which for a second, I just want to say, I hate the dad. When they ask if there are any immediate family who want to see the lady, Sydney Sweeney's character speaks up and is like, hey, I'm her stepdaughter. And then the dad is like, she might prefer seeing her real children. And what the heck, bro? Like, come on. So bro's now my enemy number one. I hope he get hit by a bus. All my homies hate middle-aged white men now. But back to my larger point. They wanted Sydney Sweeney to look like a young woman, but she is aggressively an adult. So much so that her in a costume is off-putting because it felt like a fetish thing. They did everything besides give her pigtails and braces. Damn, even the son don't think Sydney Sweeney's character is a part of the family. That kid sucks too. I hope his mom does. Look at this dumbass feeding a cat milk. Somebody need to tell her cats don't eat milk. They're carnivores. Anyway, you'd think this is a Batman movie the way they have her making being an orphan her entire personality.
Us strays need to stick together.
Cassandra's powers manifest after almost drowning, which I'm confused about. Sure, she was born in water, but it took her almost drowning for them to activate. What if she never almost drowned in her life? And if the water is important here, why has her powers never activated before when she was taking a bath or swimming in a pool or something? Speaking of powers, the bodyguard who shot Cassandra's mom appears again looking exactly the same, which makes no sense because it was 30 years ago and he should be damn near 60 at this point. Something I don't like is that they are desperately trying to make him a complex villain and failing terribly at it.
I'm not interested in helping people. No one helped me when my family was starving.
Before he shot Cassandra's mother, he talked about how his life was hard and no one helped him when his family was starving. Which, okay, sure. He technically accidentally killed Cassandra's mother. They were struggling, the gun accidentally went off because she wouldn't let go of the spider. Sure. The two unnamed researchers he killed don't count. And he just slept with and killed a woman who works for the NSA so that he can use NSA technology to find the 3 girls who kill him, which, spoiler alert, are the same 3 girls Cassandra comes across earlier in the movie. On a side note, I completely forgot Sydney Sweeney plays a spider person in this, which kind of begs a question in my mind. Why didn't they just get a 3rd younger looking person for Sydney Sweeney's character? The other 2 people are adults but have young faces. Sydney Sweeney looks like an adult to me. Anyway, Sims kills NSA woman because he keeps having visions of the 3 spider people pulling up on him, which I don't really get because why does he need a troubled past to be a villain? If he's just evil, make him evil. He wanted a spider because he wanted power and to see the future, fine. Why does every villain need to be complex? Some villains can just be bad, especially in like a superhero action movie. No one's going into Madam Web and thinking, wow, I hope the villain has a complex past that narratively drives his actions. Not everyone needs to be Killmonger, especially when I can already tell they're going to half-ass it. How does his family motivate him currently to kill the NSA woman or do something in the future that makes him be killed later on? How does his family motivate him to kill Cassandra's mother? I sincerely doubt they're going to answer any of that in a satisfying way, so just make him a bad person. Kind of a nitpick, but the humor is really bad in this movie. And I don't mean just like Marvel bad, but like actually bad. A random person on the street could probably tell or knows a better joke offhand than the jokes in this movie. And of course, no movie in 2024 is complete without the obligatory ad. Cassie shows up to a baby shower she was roped into by her partner, which her reason for not wanting to go was fair. She didn't want to be forced to do the quote-unquote women shit like games and stuff at the baby shower while guys are outside drinking beer and chilling. Instead of a beer, Cassandra's handed a Pepsi, which in every scene the logo is always conveniently facing the camera. Just then, all the EMTs are called down to a fire at the docks. While working, Cassie's powers are starting to manifest stronger and stronger, like a series of deja vu over and over again, and she sees Mike Epps' character O'Neill die in a car crash. And while I assume this is meant to be or set up as her Uncle Ben moment, it doesn't quite feel earned for 2 reasons. One, she tried to stop him, and even if she doesn't get what's going on, she's had the deja vu thing happen twice now, and at that point, I feel like she should or could have been a lot more adamant about stopping him. 2, he was on screen a total of like 5 minutes. Cassie goes to the baby shower, he's grilling, he says a couple lines to Cassie, they're called to the fire, he says another couple lines, and then he does. Though folks are tired of seeing it, Uncle Ben dying is impactful, even if it happens hypothetically in the first 5 minutes of a movie, because we have prior knowledge that they were good to Peter. We have knowledge, even if in the vaguest sense, of their upbringing. Even to someone who somehow doesn't know Spider-Man's backstory, they assume this was his father figure who raised him, they must have a good relationship. Uncle Ben is immortalized in Spider-Man/Peter Parker's actions. We see Uncle Ben whenever Peter rescues someone because Peter shows us what Ben taught him. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's completely possible that they will do a good job and make this a comparable, impactful turning point in Cassie's life. But how is that possible when what we have seen of O'Neill and Cassie is a handful of lines and then his death? Sims is out to kill the 3 girls who kill him in his vision, which you'd think he would think for a second, maybe I should try to get away from them? The movie has already shown that the future isn't cemented in stone by Cassie opening a window before a pigeon can hit it and die, so him seeking out these people, even though out of everyone shown to have powers to see the future so far, he should know that the best. Anyway, Cassie's having visions of the man attacking the girls on the train because they're all connected. That's the entire point of the Spider-Verse, is that spider people are all connected So comic book logic, all 4 of them are in the exact same place at the exact same time, all within 50 feet of each other. It isn't that weird. Comic books. So she's seeing a future where all these people get killed by Ezekiel Sims, and she's still like, oh, I'm seeing things again. My sister in Christ, you literally saved a New York pigeon rather than a black man. If you don't stop thinking you're crazy and help those kids. Like, I get it, it's confusing and scary, but at a certain point, this whole thinking she's scary after all of this thing is getting a little bit much. I know I said I wouldn't approach this as a comic book fan, and I'm gonna stick to that, and I promise this is the only comic book lore I'll talk about, but chronologically, superheroes exist at this point. Cassie was born in the 70s, and it's currently 2003 in the movie. Even during the 70s, in Marvel Universe, there were superheroes, so it baffles me in superhero movies when people are like shocked when they can do something out of the ordinary in a universe where people can eat planets and control time. If I remember correctly, Marvel movies exist in their own little pocket universe outside of the comics, so it makes sense, kind of, how everyone else is experiencing all of this as though they are the first superpowered person in existence. But that just has been a pet peeve in general when it comes to superhero movies. Being surprised you have powers in a world where there are literal tiers of power is like being shocked you can run particularly fast. Like, oh sure, you can see into the future? That's great. What else? Bro's suit kinda badass though, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm curious why it needs to look like Peter Parker's though. It might just be me, but it takes me out of it a little bit. His suit just kinda looks like an evil Spider-Man. And why would someone come up with the same design as a teenager from Queens who got their powers like 30 plus years after him? Cause I'm not sure how they're going to explain Spider-Man if he has powers yet or whatever, cause I think this is a Marvel movie and Spider-Man is owned by Sony. Cassie decides the best way to save the 3 of them by essentially kidnapping them and stealing a taxi. And you know what? She's taking initiative finally, and I'm happy to meet her halfway. The police and witnesses don't think so, so there's a police report out that she is the one who kidnapped them, with no mention of the villain, which I don't really get, because we do see him attack police officers. And if those cops didn't put out an Amber Alert, who did? Cassie has a great idea of driving to the middle of the woods with 3 teenagers the city thinks she kidnapped, and they are all trying to piece together what is happening. And as all the main characters of the movie are sitting there talking, you kind of realize how cringy the dialogue can be at times, which is made even more apparent by how they made all 3 girls kind of stereotypes. Like, they kind of just made all 3 of them one-dimensional stereotypes. Maddie, who was the girl who flipped off the ambulance at the beginning of the movie because she's riding a skateboard in the middle of the street and almost got hit, is a rambunctious, in-your-face troublemaker who is a rebel. Anya, who lives in Cassie's building, who they kind of hint at as being poor as her first appearance as a landlord asking for the rent her family is laid on, is a smart, logical person who seems to have an issue with the other 2 girls. Why? I assume because she believes their home lives are better than hers, which in her defense is probably true. Maddie goes to a private school, and Sydney Sweeney's character very much looks like a upper middle class preppy white girl. Finally, Sydney Sweeney's character, Julia, who is the stepdaughter of the woman Cassie saved earlier in the movie with the shitty dad, is a soft-spoken, not very confident in themselves nerd type who is consistently trying to mediate. They're essentially the Powerpuff Girls with extra steps. Cassie has the great idea to leave 3 teenagers in the middle of the woods alone because Julia mentions that the guy was crawling on the wall like a spider person, which makes her risk getting arrested to go home and read over her mother's stuff, which then reveals that the man chasing them is someone her mother knew. For a moment, we are going to put a pin in leaving children out in the woods. Don't think about that. Put it out of your mind. We're going to think about how this scene makes no sense for one of 2 reasons. One, we see Cassie look over her mother's belongings earlier in the movie. Why has she never stumbled across what I presume to be one of the only photos she has of her mother? That man's face should have immediately clicked in her mind, as Cassie's entire story is being someone who wants a family and to have familial ties to people, but lacks that. You would assume she would have seen that photo multiple times by now. 2, assuming she never read the journals and kind of just glanced over them, why does a spider person make you go, oh, I should look at my mother's journals? You can't have the story be she's experiencing something weird and freaky she doesn't understand by seeing the future and there's no information on this, than to have her recollect her mother's journals at the mention of spider people. Who would assume a regular, in their right mind scientist and researcher would describe a mythological insect people with magic powers in one of their journals? You can't have it both ways. And And I know this is super nitpicky, but just like think about it with me for a hot minute. The entire time she has access to this information that would give her answers to what is happening to her, that would validate that she may not be crazy. Information that we have seen her look over, but recalls none of that information until Spider-Person is said and after the black man dies. That's my entire point. Why didn't Mike Epps have to die? This is some bullshit. She saved a goddamn pigeon though. The girls get hungry and Maddie suggests that they all go to a diner. Anya says none of us have any money, to which Maddie says, I have money, which upsets Anya and she calls her a privileged rich girl. And can we all agree that poor person hitting rich person is hacky and corny writing now? It's hacky as hell, especially in a multi-million-dollar movie made by a multi-billion-dollar corporation. It's so superficial and always comes across as, what the fuck? Why does this poor person hate that I'm rich and lucky, and never does any actual examination on why someone would have genuine disdain for someone wealthy? Because it just reduces the character to the token bitter poor. It's so shallow that it might as well be one girl hating the other girl for being popular. And it's not like Marvel is going to allow any class critique or talk of how devastating poverty can be in their movies anyway. So what's the point other than just bad writing? Cassie comes back, finds the girls are missing, and sees a future where Ezekiel kills all of them, so she rushes to the diner to stop it. After saving the girls, she then gets upset at teenagers she left in the middle of the woods with no food for being impulsive. Teenagers, hungry ones, for the high crime of being impulsive. Sure, them hanging out with random guys at the diner and dancing on tables isn't great, but again, mad at teenagers for impulse decisions. Come on. Cassie takes them to a hotel and she's like, well, I can't do this. I will take you all to the police or your parents, which activates the trap card sad backstory. And everyone reveals how they really don't have anywhere to go. Anya reveals her dad got deported 6 months ago and is living alone in their apartment. Maddie says her parents regret having a child in the first place. But most importantly, Julia reveals that her mom is in a psych ward because Julia's dad leaving, she took it kind of poorly. So Julia was sent to live with him and his new family. And the reason she was at the train station was because she wanted to see if they would even care if she ran away. And I called it. I could tell he was shitty. Bro's balding, got an Asian son. I could see libertarian guy with Asian wife written all over him. Anyway, they all share and Cassie has this weird dream where she said fuck them kids and left while they all slept. Just to end up back at the diner talking to Ezekiel. And he explains that he won't let the girls ruin everything that he worked for. So he'll kill them before they even get their powers. Which begs the question, what is dude's motivations? What empire did he build? How did he build it? They just kind of leave that open so far. That he had a family, he got bit by the spider after killing Cassie's mom, and like he's rich now. That's all you know about him. That's his entire arc. I hope they don't just leave it vague, honestly, because it doesn't make sense what he is doing later on that needs to be stopped. And how though having a 30-year head start on powers and building said empire, it can still crumble with 3 teenagers going thwip thwip. Anyway, Cassie goes to Peru to get some answers. The Los Arañas man finds Cassie retracing her mother's steps. We are going to ignore how easily Cassie found the area her mother was in when her mother went there with an entire team. While Cassie just went to a different country, presumably not speaking the native language, with a map and some questions. You find out that the reason Cassie's mother was in the rainforest in the first place and so adamant about the spider was that Cassie was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease before she was born that affects the muscles. Myasthenia gravis, which I did a bit of research on and is relatively treatable apparently, and people with it have average life expectancy. But it's also treatable in babies soon after they're born, so it's wild she died for nothing. But we're gonna cut up some slack and assume because it's the 70s there was nothing they could have done. Cassie leaves Peru with her answers, and on her way back to get the girls from Ben, his sister's water breaks. So he has to rush her to the hospital where Sims catches up and attempts to blow up their car, which is crazy in of itself. But Cassie's idea of stopping Sims is by hitting him with an ambulance she stole and making him drop the bomb under a cab, killing other people, I guess. Cassie, with a better understanding and control of her powers, manages to fight off Sims and finally get away, only for the truck to break down near the docks where O'Neill died, which I'm still not over the fact that she put in more of an effort to save a pigeon than a black man. Cassandra's fight with Ezekiel is going well until it isn't. In the future she saw starts to change, leading to all the girls being placed in danger, where another one of her powers begins to manifest, which allows her to save them each individually through astral projection kind of thing, which is honestly kind of a cool power. I'm not going to bullshit you there. Imagine how much you would accomplish in a day if you could be in 2 places at once, let alone several at a time. As the building around them crumbles, Ezekiel falls to his death, self-fulfilling a prophecy, and the giant neon sign falls apart and Cassie falls into a nearby river where she is hit in the face with a stray firework that knocks her out and blinds her as well. In the hospital, they have their sentimental moment of we're family now, and they go on to live together where Cassie says she sees their future, blah blah blah. I have 2 questions though. 1, what happened to her ability to walk? The firework fork hit her in the face. I get it, cause in a lot of her portrayals, Madam Web is blind and paralyzed, but they kind of phone in the being paralyzed part in this movie. And 2, the scene would be fine if they didn't make her wear these goofy ass glasses and make her talk like a robot. I know this scene is meant to portray her as like finally coming into herself and her powers and having a family. She is at the end of the hero's journey, now different than when she started it, but her stoic demeanor kind of betrays her. It would make sense as an old woman after years of being able to see into the future that she has a sort of mystic, wise prophet cadence or whatever. She's essentially seen everything, so there's no more excitement in her way of speaking. You could make sense of that later in life, but her at still 30? No. This final scene kind of throws a lot of what makes Cassie a fun character away. The entire story up until now was her being very lively and speaking her mind, but now it feels like this isn't Cassie anymore. She's Madam Web now, which is kind of disappointing to say the least, because Cassie really grew on me as the story progressed. So to see all of that personality be thrown away is kind of sad. I'll chalk some of that disappointment up to the medium though. Comic book movies have to condense decades of lore into an exciting story in under 3 hours, using beloved IP that would be heavily scrutinized. It's not an easy job. I definitely think this would have worked a lot better as a miniseries though, personally. Anyway, I will get to the point though. Final thoughts. It's a fine movie. It's good background noise is something you put on and look over at while hanging out with other people, where the focus isn't necessarily the movie but the hangout. Honestly, I would even go so far as to say it's a decent movie to actively watch. No one is going to a superhero action movie for its airtight plot structure. There's holes in it, sure, but that's fine. There's highs and lows of the movie. I would genuinely love to meet the person who in 2024 expects thought-provoking, emotional storytelling in a superhero movie. As long as you don't have a stick up your ass, all the characters grow on you after a while. I think this movie suffers from what a lot of Hollywood big budget movies suffer from. The desire to make a movie in order to sell tickets, not in order to tell a story. The dialogue at times can be hollow and kind of cringe, but it's a Marvel movie. I've seen most of them and they all have that to some degree, more or less. It's just about balancing that tightrope. I think the costume design could have used a bit of work. Like, I'm staring at the final scene and I can't get over how much I hate her glasses to my very soul. Like, no one in the real world or one of the girls in universe was like, no, get more stylish of a pair of glasses, or just one that fits better. Anyway, none of that is to say that it's a bad movie. Does it have its flaws? Yes. Is it judged under a higher level of scrutiny unfairly? Absolutely. Both of these things can be true, and all manner of people will look you up and down and try to rationalize why they hate this one in particular, as though Marvel movies were always works of art that define a generation, and not just fun movies of IP that corporations want to milk. And as I said in the beginning, I'm not here to critique its lore accuracy. I'm here to judge it on the basis of a movie anyone can watch, and it does that. Anyone can watch it, and as long as you don't think about it too hard, it's a chill movie you can hang out to. Superhero movies aren't Citizen Kane, and if you judge them along that basis, you're a silly person. Anyway, thanks for watching.